This is the burning issue on the happy world of 5FM radio, bringing you hot, smoldering topics on a weekly basis. Your participation is important.
Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on the Thursday edition of The Burning Issue. We appreciate the greatness of your company on 5FM, your happy day station. This program is also live on our partner radio stations, iWave FM 90.1, covering the entire Copperbelt province, Muchinga FM on 88.1 in Muchinga province, Wave FM on 98.7 in Southern Province, Spice FM on 91.1 FM, Central Province, and Tuta FM on 90.7 in Mansa. Our guest on the program this morning is Lukashya, Member of Parliament, who is also legal chairman of the Patriotic Front and is a member of the Central Committee. Suffice to mention that he's also former president of the Law Association of Zambia, Honorable George Chisanga. Honorable Chisanga, good morning and welcome to the Thursday edition of The Burning Issue.
Good morning, Mr. Mutabi. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity again to speak to the people through your radio station.
And so I'm your host, Herbert Mutabi, sitting in for your usual host, Zakaria Banda, who is going to be back with you next week. I'm only hoping I'll be able to fill his very big shoes. For starters, Honorable, give us an update on the court case involving the two factions of the Patriotic Front. Where are we?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutabi. Allow me to start by being a decent human being, to welcome you formally back to Zambia from your mission abroad where you were serving the government. It's not easy to serve the government, and somebody who has done what you've done must be appreciated. We appreciate it, and welcome back to Zambia.
Thank you.
There are a number of court cases that we have between the Patriotic Front and what other people are calling the faction. But I'll call them the renegade members of the party. And most of those cases basically border on the decisions that have been made either side. There have been decisions that we've made ourselves, which we have subjected to the legal process to establish, whether we were right in making those decisions or not. And also there are certain decisions that these renegades have made, which concerns the membership of our senior members of the party. At the rate that we are, I can't divulge the details of what is in court because of the sub judice rule. But suffice to say that we have the expectations that the courts are going to mete out justice that is demanded in the cases. If you heard very recently, Mr. Sampa posted on his Facebook page that the matter that they had before Mrs. Chocho, Mrs. Justice Chocho, has been stayed because they had appealed a certain decision that she had made. They had wanted to challenge the incumbency of our Secretary General, Mr. Rafo Nakachinda, to be the one who should be a party in that action as Secretary General, because they questioned in another case again his appointment to the office of Secretary General. The judge in her wisdom had said that Mr. Nakachinda was appropriately cited as a party in that action, and there was no need for him to be removed or to be non-suited, as they use in legal terms. That's a decision that they had appealed to the Court of Appeal, and in their wisdom, they came back to court to ask that the merits of the case must not be determined before Judge Chocho until that decision of the Court of Appeal, whether Mr. Nakachinda is the right respondent in the action or not. There is also a matter in the Constitutional Court where, arising from the decisions that Mr. Sampa and his team had purportedly made to dismiss senior members of our party, members of parliament, including our member of Central Committee, Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, to expel them from the party. That matter has been challenged, not on the basis of the exercise of powers that Mr. Sampa has, because in our assessment of the relationship we have with them, they possess no powers which they're exercising. But we've challenged it on the basis that we want to ensure that people in the respective constituencies where our colleagues come from continue to have representation. Because under the Constitution, anybody who makes a decision to expel a sitting member of parliament actually affects the right of people to be represented. So that matter has been taken also to the Constitutional Court. It's pending before the Constitutional Court. But we continue to express the hope that the courts are going to sense the urgency with which these matters are supposed to be determined, because I'll explain further that certain events that are taking place in the country are happening because the courts have taken a long time to make a determination of these cases. But we are hopeful that in the shortest time possible, we should be able to come and get to inform the public about the justice that will have come from these courts.
Away from court matters, let's look at the state of affairs in the Patriotic Front. Your party's performance in the recently held by-elections is a matter of concern, I'd want to believe. Your performance has either been poor or you've not participated at all.
Yes, I would readily dismiss the assertion that our performance has been poor. I mean, in the instances where we have participated, even in the most difficulty of circumstances, we have either won some of the by-elections or we have performed very, very well if we have been allowed to participate at a level playing field. But if you've noticed, from the time that His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema made a declaration that now their relationship with us is going to be based on what they term imingalato, they have made it practically difficult for the real Patriotic Front to participate in these elections. Firstly, they have compromised the ECZ itself by coming up with non-existent rules that suggest that the real owners of the party should not sponsor a candidate. In fact, in several cases where we've tried to sponsor candidates, the candidature has not been accepted by ECZ. We have taken a litmus test. We have challenged one of the decisions that the ECZ has made in Mpika, where they rejected the nomination of our member of the party who wanted to stand as councillor. That matter was challenged before a tribunal in accordance with the local government election challenges. The tribunal made a finding that the ECZ was wrong to have refused to accept the nomination of our member of intending or prospective councillor. Now, under the law, if such a decision is made by a tribunal, it means there must be fresh nominations. So we expected that based on the decision of the tribunal, which is a government institution, we were going to be allowed now to file fresh nominations in all the by-elections that were pending at that time. Lo and behold, the ECZ decided they're not going to have any of that. So they defied the finding of the tribunal set up under the Electoral Processes Act. And they went ahead and held those elections without our participation. And from that time onward, the Patriotic Front, the real Patriotic Front, the legitimate Patriotic Front, has not been allowed to participate in any elections.
But even, sorry to cut you short,
Yes.
even the other parties claiming that they're the legitimate owners of the party.
Mr. Mutabi, you don't even have to be a grade 12 or a graduate or or an educated person to understand that this scheme that we're living with, the one that was instigated by connivance between the UPND government and Mao Sampa's led group, not faction, it's just a group of a few renegades of the party, cannot claim any legitimacy of any kind, even before the courts make decisions. If you have heard, from day one, the Patriotic Front has made a statement that whatever Mr. Sampa has done does not call for something you can call a genuine convention. There was nothing that is akin to a Patriotic Front convention. It was just a get-together group by certain individuals, which comprised people that were not sitting on structures of Patriotic Front, and even hired people from the UPND to create a semblance of a grouping that then ushers into office some purported leadership of the Patriotic Front. This is what they call themselves. You can't call that legitimate. They can claim whatever they want to claim as legitimacy. In a country where the rule of law is respected, in a country where reasonableness is what drives the process of what you are doing, by now we should have gotten to a decision of whether these people were legitimate or not. But quite frankly, any Zambian who's sitting out there and who's judging what is going on knows beyond any reasonable doubt that they cannot claim any legitimacy and illegality or even constitutionality in what they did themselves.
Well, we'll wait for the courts to determine, since the matters are in court.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why does your party claim that the UPND has been inducing some by-elections? We've seen in the media where you've cried foul.
2% of the elections that we've held, by-elections that we've held since the UPND came into power, may have been caused because of death, or maybe genuine resignations. But I haven't even seen any single case of a genuine resignation. But all the elections that we've had, in all the by-elections we've had, apart from those induced by death, all of them have been induced by an offer of employment to a sitting councillor by the UPND government, either as a teacher or as a medical officer. If you saw one time, we circulated a letter, that was signed by, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Secretary of Cabinet, employing a sweeper, somebody who was a councillor. They employed him as a cleaner in a medical facility, in a health
What is
facility
wrong with that?
in a rural area. There are so many people that don't have jobs. Somebody has placed themselves up for election, has campaigned, has been elected, and is sitting in the office of a councillor. We know that so many people, especially in rural areas, need jobs. There are so many people that could have been offered that kind of job. How you deliberately select a sitting councillor and offer him a job in exchange for him resigning his position and creating a by-election? Everything about that is wrong. It's immoral. It's unacceptable. It's a cost to the nation, and it is downright unnecessary.
But councillors are Zambians, and we've also seen instances, Honorable, where some of these councillors have applied for jobs just like any other Zambian, and when they are picked, now they are made to choose between continuing as a councillor and taking up the job offer. So they prefer to get the job offer, and in that case, you cannot blame the UPND.
At the risk of
it's
sounding,
the individual.
At the risk of sounding repetitive, sir,
Yeah.
Let me repeat what I said. There are so many people that need jobs, and these councillors will be sitting in a job. Being a councillor is actually a job. You cannot run away from it. Somehow, it's a service to the nation. Why has it become so necessary that only sitting councillors are the ones who should be preferred when they apply for a job? Why can't you give that job to somebody else? But also, look at the comparison. What is the cost of a by-election? A cost of by-election cannot necessarily justify accepting that the councillor himself has volunteered. And let me tell you the truth, there's no single councillor who has voluntarily gone to get a job. They have actually been enticed. And what we find immoral and unacceptable is that this enticement comes from a sitting government, which has been complaining about lack of resources, which has been complaining about lack of funds to do, viable projects within communities where even these councillors live themselves. We have seen, how shambolic our agricultural sector has been managed. We've seen how shambolic our medical supplies have been in the public. The government just does not have money to utilize to do genuine government projects. Why would they justify creating all these by-elections that you have seen just in the name of saying councillors have got the right also to apply and get a job? I think Zambians must get to a stage where they become decent, both the councillors themselves, but most importantly, those who are given the mandate to govern the affairs of the nation for 5 years. We need to be able to get to a stage where we focus on delivering what we promise the people, not destroying the other party by creating, a twisted majority for yourselves by instigating by-elections.
Talking of creating a by-election so that the other parties are weakened, we know it's in public domain that there are two factions, one being led by Matero Member of Parliament, Honorable Mao Sampa, and the other one, which is under former President Edgar Lungu. What is the future of the former ruling party? Is PF heading the UNIP or MMD way?
The Patriotic Front positions itself in a very unique position. Firstly, I want to dispel the notion, and I always take the opportunity when I'm on media to dispel the notion that actually there are factions in the Patriotic Front. Factions are created politically when you have a legitimate grouping that gets together, attempts to agree a position, and when they fail to agree a position, one party goes to the right, the other party goes to the left, in failure to agree. In other words, if you were going to call what Mao Sampa is heading as a faction, it should have arisen, or it should have been born out of a genuine convention that could have been called in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution of the Patriotic Front. What we have explained repeatedly and what the public has observed is that this renegade was actually sponsored by the UPND. It did not hold anything which has a semblance of a convention. So you can't birth a faction from such an organization.
But it's there.
It's a grouping. I want you to agree with me that it's a renegade group. It's a group of deviants who have decided to depart from what everybody else in the party expects them to do. I want to insist that a faction could only have been born if what we had conducted was a genuine convention and there was genuine disagreement among us and the members who comprise the electoral college at that time, which then creates a faction. If you call it a faction, you're actually trying to legitimize something that is not even correct. But speaking about the future of a Patriotic Front, you have seen what has happened. Our structures are still intact countrywide. Our central committee is still intact and it's functioning countrywide. Okay, we have membership everywhere. We have provincial chairpersons. We have central committee that is the central, policy-making organs of the Patriotic Front. It is functioning effectively. We are in parliament, very organized. I think you have never seen in this country a most organized opposition political grouping like a Patriotic Front has been performing in the last 2.5 years in parliament. To that extent, you've seen that even the independent members of parliament are beginning to think that they can align with the Patriotic Front opposition as opposed to the UPND because they've seen the wrongs that the UPND is doing at any given time. So they would like to associate themselves with a grouping that begins to reflect the expectations of the people insofar as providing political leadership is concerned. So Patriotic Front is intact. No amount of infiltration that we have seen, no amount of instigated renegism that we have seen through the UPND is going to destroy the Patriotic Front. We shall remain intact and we shall be there in 2026 and we shall present candidates in 2026 and God willing, we shall return to government in 2026.
Are you considering withdrawing court cases to resolve issues internally?
They must always be the basis for making those kinds of decisions. And lawyers are the ones who guide. But cases are withdrawn based upon a genuine realization that there is room for parties to agree a position and go forward. There have been maneuvers, there have been very limited maneuvers to try and see how we can sit together and try and resolve these matters. But I say very, very minimum. That don't justify, currently the dropping of those court cases. We went to court because we think that, firstly, we are a party which was in power and we owe the courts a duty to make sure that when we have a dispute that we think the courts can objectively, independently, and justitiously resolve, we render ourselves to the jurisdiction of the court. So our expectations currently are that these courts are going to come to rise to the challenge and look at the cases objectively and independently and help us resolve this impasse. But you cannot predict the future when you are dealing with a dispute that concerns human beings. Our expectation is that if our friends can come up with genuine causes for us to sit down with them and speak about these issues, especially addressing themselves to the misfortunes that took place on the 24th of October last year, and realizing that there was folly in what they did, we can then create a platform at which we can discuss and agree the way forward. Resolving cases in such a fashion is humane, actually.
I don't want to play the devil's advocate. Assuming the court cases extend to 2026, what happens to the PF?
Well, the PF will still be intact, like I said, but I do not even want to play into the court of the devil's advocate and say the cases must be resolved up to 2026. We are actually dealing with a very simple case here. We have had complex cases in this country that have been resolved in the shortest possible time. I think for me, the courts must just be alive to the environment that exists in this country. The environment in this country, Mr. Mutabi, is getting toxic every day. And this is not to threaten the government, or it is not to threaten those who are in power, or to instigate any revolt like people misunderstand. The environment is getting toxic every day. Some of us, because we understand leadership, we try and interact with people at the most basic level. We get on buses, we go to funerals, we get into crowd organizations to just to pick out what people are thinking. Genuinely, people are extremely aggrieved with what is going on in the country. And they would not want to see this impasse between, us and the Mao Sampa case even go forward. People can take these things into their own hands. The reason why we have been, the Patriotic Front membership and supporters have been come up now is because we have impressed upon them that we must repose trust in the courts. We must have the expectations that we have a structured way in which we resolve disputes in court. But unfortunately, we keep getting, destabilized by our colleagues. We keep getting, there are all manner of frustrations and provocations that our colleagues are putting in our camp, to an extent where if we let go and say, look, we are also tired as leaders, we just have to let this go, this country can go up in flames. We don't want that to happen. We have got only one country, and we think that the UPND can provide leadership while sitting in government, and they can allow us to provide genuine checks and balances while sitting in opposition. Look, we had UPND for the longest time. They were the longest serving opposition political party before they came into power. We never got them to do what they're doing to us right now. It never actually happened. When they're in their own internal, wrangles, they resolve them, on their own. Look at what is happening. And something as extremely petty as getting a boy called, I don't even know his name. What, Chama America, and the other guy is called who? There are two boys. I don't even want to know them, because look, we cannot reduce leadership to that level. But when you begin to hear that Chama America and Mr. Ground, they call him, have been arrested because they want to divulge what was contained in the plan that they had, or in the scheme they had to take over the Patriotic Front. The genuine reaction from Zambians must be to dismiss it and say, look, but when you see the whole command of the police becoming excited in such kind of a scenario, and even arresting, Mr. Ground simply because they don't want to divulge that information, then it tells you there's something that smells in what is going on in that scheme. Look, you can't pretend here, Mr. Mutabi, that Sampa alone can destabilize the board called Patriotic Front. He can only do it because he's being sponsored by somebody. Go and see him. Go and greet him and see how many security people are surrounding him. Why have you provided him security? Go and see the so-called leader of opposition in parliament, the young man Chisanga. Go and see how he's debating. Compare him to how Brian Mundubile used to debate when he was leader of opposition. It must take somebody with a stamina. It must take somebody who genuinely wants to provide checks and balances to be given that very important and lofty position of leader of opposition. But these people are all being sponsored. And you can see that the intention is basically to distract the Patriotic Front. Give me 1 minute. We were supposed to have our constitutional convention on the 28th of October, 2023. We got information that somebody was being sponsored to create a parallel leadership within the Patriotic Front. We decided, a central committee, to adjourn that elective convention. Because our friends had been made to work underground without us knowing, we then heard there was going to be a convention, on the 24th of October. And in our wisdom as members of the Central Committee, we convened an urgent Central Committee meeting at which we took certain decisions, including expelling Mr. Sampa and suspending the national chairperson. The reason was because we didn't want that convention to gain even some aura of legitimacy. Even when we did that, you saw what happened on Independence Day last year. Mr. Sampa had a grouping of people. I'll not call it convention. I don't want to use terms in the wrong way. He had a grouping of people that comprised, some people who were not on the structures of Patriotic Front, and some of them even declared we are members of the UPND. They went and held that convention. During that convention, Mr. Chisanga, if you watched it, it was on Facebook. He was trotting between State House, where we were celebrating independence, and Lungu, where they were having a convention. And in his own words, he said in that convention, in making a show at in the State House now president.
There's a video to that effect?
Yes, there's a video.
On Facebook?
It was on
Facebook. I never saw it. I
think we can have a convention, you and me. I hope they haven't deleted that. We saw it on Facebook. He came there and said, in the State House function, to celebrate independence. And he was the first one to cast a vote for Miles Sampa. And everybody else then purportedly cast votes and everything. And the next thing you saw, Miles Sampa started making those decisions. You want more evidence? When the president was in Kasama, to go and launch the airport in Kasama, the official opening of the airport, you heard what he said? He was with Chisanga. The president, the Republican president, was telling Chisanga, Mwaiche, Kosa, to support. Where have you ever heard a Republican president who heads a party in power declaring support for somebody who is going to be leading an opposition, a biggest opposition political party? Where have you heard that? You want more evidence? This clearly is a scheme
but
that
is
has
it
been...
they were talking about with the president?
Chisanga is a member of parliament sponsored by the Patriotic Front. Even in parliament,
in parliament,
he's purportedly, a leader of opposition of the Patriotic Front. That very time when they had a convention, in the night, Mr. Myambango, who is a deputy inspector of police, was busy with other senior police officers going to change registered particulars of office bearers for the Patriotic Front at Registrar of Societies. There is a very strong young lady in this country who everyone who wants to be a senior civil servant should emulate. The young man, Mrs. Mhende, was a very strong registrar of societies. She resisted whatever they tried to do. What has happened? She has lost her job. But let me tell you, this young lady, for the rest of her life, she's going to work with dignity. Not because Patriotic Front is a part of NGOs, no, but because she knew that there's an act called the Registrar of Society, the Societies Act, which regulates institutions, among others, political parties. She knew that what we have done to the Patriotic Front currently can be done to any other institutions, not only political parties, but others. But you see, she remained firm and told them, if you want us to change particulars, please comply with the law. They were not prepared to do that.
Was she fired?
Our lawyers, using ingenuity, because we've got very, very able lawyers, they went to court and obtained an order because they knew that on her own she couldn't produce evidence of who are the registered, office bearers at reserve societies. Our lawyers went to court, obtained an order of court. Okay, that very day, that young lady was shown the door. A couple of days after that, the judge who was hearing the matter was retired. Look, Mr. Mutabi, you don't need more evidence to know that we are degenerating this country and we are desecrating this country, all in a quest to destroy the Patriotic Front. But I have said so many times, the Patriotic Front is not a political party. This party has transcended, and this is a reason, and somebody must borrow this. This is not a lie, it's a truth. This party has transcended because Patriotic Front takes on itself the character of UNIP. Patriotic Front takes on itself the character of MMD. The Patriotic Front takes on itself the character of patriots, Zambians who may not have been members of political parties before, but when they saw what PF was formed for and what it was designed to achieve in the nation, they enlisted on this grouping. So it is not only a political party, this is a living organism. You can try all means to desecrate it. It is not going to happen. Somebody must just agree that this institution exists and it's going to exist and lead the agenda to return itself to government in 2026.
How are your MPs interacting with the current leader of opposition in Parliament, Honorable Robert Chavinga?
Parliament is on TV. You can see for yourself what is happening. If you've seen now, look, and this is a very serious observation, Mr. Mutabi. Parliament is an institution that brings on board the whole nation. When we are sitting as a parliament, the whole country is sitting in that august house. And there was a reason why, for a longest time, when we became multi-party state system, the parties that were in government allowed the opposition to organize their own leadership in parliament. This leadership of Mr. Chavinga is a creature of a scheme that was hashed between, like I said, I don't want to repeat that. But look at what we are doing in parliament now. We are continuing to recognize those that we elected ourselves as leaders in parliament. Insofar as we are concerned, Brian Munduvire is a person we continue to recognize as our leader of opposition. Stephen Kampiongo is one recognized as opposition whip, and Kasandwe is deputy opposition whip. We think that we are trying to keep a decent parliament. We don't want to behave like renegades. But if you know that Chawinga has no capacity to mobilize the opposition, because you know what? Leadership is leadership. You can manipulate it whichever you want it. If it is a manipulated creation in leadership, it doesn't function. And that's why all those who've been appointed or whatever, that's why they are failing to mobilize the opposition. But you've seen, you call that working?
Yeah.
Look at the quality of debates. You call that working? The parliament has now been reduced to just an afternoon tea party. You go there, you just sit in there. For us, we're just making sure that the quorum is formed. In fact, like I said, it's because we had committed ourselves to providing, objective and mature checks and balances. And that's why we find ourselves in parliament. It's very, very distressing to be a member of parliament in Patriotic Front right now. Me, I've had 4 jobs before I became a member of parliament, even running my own practice. If there was anything that I ever looked forward to, it is waking up in the morning, going to my office to sit and changing people's lives every day, be it in my job as legal counsel in a bank, be it in my job as corporate counsel in an international institution, be it the senior partner for my firm, KMG Chisanga and Advocates. Whenever I woke up in the morning, I looked forward to how many lives am I going to change. Now, and I speak for members of parliament who are from PF, we don't even look forward to going to parliament. Because every day we are going to be treated like trash. Every day we are going to be given rulings that don't make sense. Every day we are going to be prevented from carrying out objective debate in that house. So what kind of parliament are you talking about? Let me tell you, this parliament, after it's all said and done, unless the speaker and other presiding officers can change course, this parliament is going to be rated as the worst parliament this country has ever had since independence.
Well, that's your opinion.
It's everybody's opinion. If I was off camera, if off mic with you, Sam Mutabi, and we sat and we spoke to each other, you would agree with me that I'm telling you the truth.
No, I wouldn't agree.
I'm telling you the truth, that this parliament is going to be rated the worst parliament. You can't have a parliament that operates in the fashion that we are seeing right now.
Are you not just exaggerating matters? Like you said yourself, parliament is on TV and we watch. We see members from the Patriotic Front, independent MPs, contributing to debates in parliament. It's not the picture you're painting here.
If you've been looking at the quality of debates from the time that we started up to now, what assessment have you made? I'm sorry you're interviewing me, but let me just ask you this.
Well, it's not my job to answer questions. It's you to answer questions.
If anybody can make an objective assessment of what this parliament has become from a time we started in 2021 and now, frankly, anybody who makes objective, and well-informed assessment will tell you there is a problem in parliament. And, let me tell you, for me, I believe in one philosophical position. The first step to solving a problem is to recognize and acknowledge that a problem exists. And unless Zambians get to a stage where they agree today that there's a problem in parliament, then we are going to take the next steps to resolve the problems. But if we are going to bury our heads in the sand like the proverbial ostrich and accept, as you are trying to suggest here, Mr. Mutabi, that everything is all right in that parliament.
Yeah, from what I see, and I'm sure others see that.
Posterity is going to judge us extremely harshly. And sometimes when you destroy a public institution, recovery takes a long time to be achieved. Zambians are judging parliament. Zambians are judging the presidency. Zambians are judging the judiciary. If you see the opinion out there, only that Zambians are not as brave. I don't agree with what Tayari says because of the fashion in which he says it. But in the recent statement that he made, there's one statement that I collected that I thought it sounds true to anybody who wants to make a critical position of this government, that people are just not saying things because they are not brave. And sometimes it is very difficult to be brave. And let me tell you, with the benefit, with the benefit for the UPND, sometimes when you get into a scenario like what the UPND got in now, they are given power, they're given the mandate to run the country. Zambians who always want to give you a chance to prove yourselves. And this is what Zambians have given the UPND the last 2 years, a chance to prove themselves. Have they proved themselves? Go in the bus today. Get on the bus from Kulima Tower and go to Chilenje. Hear the opinion of the Zambian people. Go and attend a funeral at Mutumbi today. Go and attend a funeral at Chingwere. Even in my village, in Chanamkulu, go and attend a funeral and hear the opinion of Zambians about this government that they put into power. So we need to accept that there's a problem before we begin to, address ourselves to the ways in which we must resolve those problems.
I've also been on buses. I live in the community. I interact with people, and the debates are mixed. The opinions are mixed. Others are happy, others are not happy, and that is just the way life is.
I'm surprised you find an opinion that is. I'm surprised you find Zambians who are happy with what we're going through right now. I'm very, very surprised. But like I said, look, it's either that side or this side. But frankly, we need to acknowledge if there's a problem, we accept it, and we begin to address ourselves to resolving the problem.
You are listening to the Thursday edition of The Burning Issue, and our guest this morning is Lukashya, Member of Parliament and legal chairman of the Patriotic Front Central Committee, and a former president of the Law Association of Zambia, Honorable George Chisanga. This program is also live on iWave FM on 90.1. covering the Copperbelt province, Muchinga FM 88.1 covering Muchinga province, Wave FM 98.7 covering Southern province, Spice FM 91.1 covering Central province, and Tuta FM on 90.7 in Mansa. We are also streaming live on the 5FM Facebook page, and shortly We'll be opening the phone lines for you to have an interaction with our guest this morning. And for you that wants to also be part of the program by way of sending in a text message, as well as WhatsApp, you can use the number 0761 912493. 0761 912493. Honorable Chisanga, let's now talk about the United Kwacha Alliance, popularly known as UKA. One wonders whether PF members were consulted before joining this alliance. There's word coming out that some members of parliament are hesitant to associate themselves with UKA, otherwise they'll be deemed to have crossed over from one political party to another. Though we know for now, this is just an alliance.
Yes. I think wherever that word is coming from, it is coming from a point of...
From the ground.
It must have a source, but I think it is coming from a source that has become extremely frightened with the political development, that has taken place, at the leadership of the Patriotic Front. UKA is not a political party. UKA is an umbrella or a collection of different political parties that identify with the same ideology, that identify with the same program to provide alternative leadership to this government. UKA has been created because people have become disgruntled. Like I said earlier, we need to first acknowledge that there's a problem in the nation before we begin to address ourselves to the resolution of the problems. So UKA for me is a manifestation of the realization by different political parties who may have slight differences in their ideologies and their programs, but who have a common agenda on how we can provide alternative leadership. And they've then decided to come under one umbrella. I am one of the senior members of parliament in the Patriotic Front. I am one of the people that provide leadership to the members of parliament in the Patriotic Front. I can tell you without any shadow of doubt, none of those MPs are hesitant to associate with UKA, because first we know the agenda for UKA. And nobody can, in their right senses, suggest that if we show our support for UKA, then we are deemed to be crossing. Crossing from where to where? You can only cross from the Patriotic Front to the UPND. You can only cross from the UPND or from Patriotic Front to Citizens First or to Socialist Party. These are registered political parties with leadership shown. UKA, even when it was created, it was announced what was being created.
You were consulted?
Of course, we were consulted. The leadership of Patriotic Front was consulted. Central Committee was consulted. Of course, we could not have seen our president being part of that leadership if we were not consulted. We were consulted. Of course, we still are dealing with the formative stages of that institution. There's need for us to get a clear understanding. But what is common to everybody who's part of UKA is that we want a platform to provide leadership, because so many things have gone wrong in the nation. And we are thinking that we should salvage the democratic credentials of this nation. And by enlisting on UKA, we are creating a platform that creates that opportunity and promise for the Zambian people.
There are sessions that UKA has been formed with the sole objective of just removing President Hakainde Hichilema and the UPND from power in 2026. And nothing else. It's a self-serving grouping.
That's far from the truth. That accent is given by people who are extremely frightened by the fact that we now have a platform that provides alternative and even better leadership than what the UPND has provided. UKA has not been formed for that purpose. UKA has been formed to bring together political parties that identify with certain ideals, the ideals that have degenerated since UPND came into power. There is so much that has gone wrong in this country since UPND came into power. If you talk about the economic front, everything has gone wrong. If you talk about national unity, everything has gone wrong. If you talk about foreign policy, everything has gone wrong. If you talk about just regional relationships, everything has gone wrong. If you talk about the farming the farming drive that we had put into place at Patriotic Front, everything has gone wrong.
I don't know what you mean.
What we want to do is to salvage. Yeah. What we want to do is to salvage certain democratic credentials that we had, but also ensure that we have a country that identifies with certain policies that are for the benefit of the Zambians, and UKA then provides that platform. Or that alternative platform.
Yeah, when you talk about things going wrong, you touched on international relations. I don't think if relations were that bad, would have institutions like the World Bank pumping in money for the construction of secondary schools in Western Province and other donors that have come on board to finance certain government programs?
The World Bank program is being used for Zambia because we're a guinea fowl. We have agreed to be used as a guinea pig for the experimenting, of a developing country now. After World Bank and IMF programs have collapsed elsewhere, the World Bank and IMF programs will not take us out of the problems that we have currently. And I would tell you, the Patriotic Front used to engage with the World Bank. We were on the World Bank program, almost signing the World Bank program when we changed government. If you heard even the UPND, the first thing they declared is that they had signed the deal with the World Bank in 2 months, which had
With
taken
IMF,
with IMF, which had taken so long for us to sign. We were not signing because of exactly what we're going through right now. We were engaging the IMF and other, lending institutions on the basis of understanding that whatever program you would like to bring into Zambia, it must be based on provision of what is called the social safety net. You see, every kind of lending creates imbalances in the economy. And the people who are affected by any kind of financial transactions with international institutions are the least in society. The people that I represent myself as member of parliament for Lukashya constituency, the majority of the people in Lukashya constituency are the ones who are most affected. So the only thing that the Patriotic Front government had been, demanding of this Bretton Woods institution was that we should agree a social safety net that allows for our people to continue feeling some kind of comfort even when we're pursuing those programs. But it is because we had information that these things cannot work in a fashion which the IMF and World Bank was trying to, throw us under, to force under our throat. So those difficulties are the ones that made PF not sign it. If you heard Dr. Warang, and one time when I was radio, he explained that we had almost gotten to a stage where some of these issues had been ticked off and we were almost going to sign. But when our friends got back, they were given a plain slate and they just went and signed it. And this is why we're living with these things that you're seeing every day. Where fertilizer is in shambles, energy is in shambles, everything that is going wrong cannot be divorced from what is happening between the government and the IMF and the World Bank.
So what's wrong with being a guinea fowl, to borrow your words, with the construction of secondary schools? Isn't that for the benefit of the people?
You see, because like I told you, the problem is you must look at the long-term effect. The World Bank programs have not succeeded anywhere. I don't know on what basis they're going to succeed here, because we need to have homegrown programs that help us then to participate in a program such as a World Bank program. Unfortunately, we don't even seem to have any homegrown programs. Our homegrown programs in this country for the longest time have been based on the mining policies that we've been pushing. Our colleagues have pushed a mining policy that is not Zambian user-friendly. It is actually, it's like you are giving you are giving away your sovereignty in different ways. First, you're surrendering yourself to the World Bank to be the ones to drive the agenda of constructing schools, as you are saying, which unfortunately I haven't even started seeing. By the way, I hope you know that even under the Patriotic Front, we were still constructing schools, and we had sufficient schools that were constructed by the Patriotic Front, because for us it was our program, it was our agenda, it was our manifesto. What we wanted to do was to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, and that's why we had gone into that robust infrastructure.
So it was okay for PF to build schools, and it is wrong for the World Bank to come and build because it's MMD in power?
Quote me.
Or is UPND in power?
Quote me correctly.
Yeah.
I haven't said it's wrong for the UPND to build schools. I just want you to pay attention to the long-term effects of being placed on the World Bank program, in which you have very little or no control about the economic
What are
effects.
those long-term effects, if you may explain?
Look, have you seen that we are being told to privatize? First of all, the mines are going to go back to foreign hands, even when PF had wanted to get them back. You look at how much we used to subsidize energy and agriculture, and these subsidies are being pulled out. Do you know that we cannot survive without subsidizing agriculture? We cannot survive without subsidizing energy. Why do you think the prices of fuel are going up? And in the style that UPND is managing the affairs of the nation, they found fuel at 15 kwacha, they push it all the way to 20 to 35 kwacha, they bring it back to 30 kwacha, and they want you to start clapping.
It's economic fundamentals and global dynamics at play.
No, they are not. They are not. We need to be able to agree as a nation. Service to the people, you must serve both from the brain and from the heart. You must feel for those people that have given you the mandate to manage the affairs of the nation. Subsidies are not unique to Zambia alone. In fact, these countries that are pushing us to move away from subsidies, they highly subsidize their economies in such a way that that's why they have galloped 100 steps ahead of us. The United States subsidizes agriculture in a very big fashion. They subsidize energy in a very big fashion. And then they come to a small country like Zambia and tell you, don't subsidize because we're going to give you an IMF and World Bank program. I think we need to be smarter than what we're doing right now. We need to even out, the bargaining table so that we can make sure that we take a bargain that benefits, yes, them and also bargains us. You see, critics have been speaking about our mining investment. They've actually said with the policies that the UPND is pushing now, we will not realize anything to our mining investment. I have said that in Parliament several times, and I was glad 2 days ago when I saw that the cabinet had sat, and one of the things they would like to do is to drive an endeavor that speaks to how we should readjust our mining policies to make sure that the mining begins to benefit Zambians. I can take this opportunity to advise the UPND government that in that endeavor, they should involve mostly people that have been critical to them so that we can get to a common position where, what we're going to say is what is going to benefit the Zambians. We're not going to have this endeavor to create additional benefits for those who are coming to invest in our mining, in our mining to the detriment of the Zambian people. So I welcome the idea that the UPND government in cabinet sat and spoke about the need for us to maybe relook at our mining policies. But I expect that this is only going to work if they're going to bring objective people to sit down on the table with them to examine this, interrogate it, and find a solution to it.
Let's now move on and look at the issue involving former President Edgar Lungu. So far, the statements he's been making in the media since announcing his return to active politics have not somewhat settled well with the ruling party and other members of the public. For example, his statement on education, which he later clarified. Then there was also the issue of people may rise and force President Ichirema to shorten his tenure. How do you interpret these statements in terms of their implications?
Look, the first point to make is that I think the UPND government is extremely uncomfortable, even with the very existence of an individual called Edgar Lungu. The very fact that he exists makes them extremely uncomfortable. And it's very easy to understand. Others have gone to the extent of even suggesting that maybe it's because they had rigged the election of 2021, and now they feel extremely uncomfortable to contend with somebody whose election they had stolen. That's an opinion that is forming out there. But in my assessment, I think it is because it has now come to be realized that Dr. Edgar Lungu, who may not have promised anything when he became a president, because he knew that he was part and parcel of a grouping called Patriotic Front that had already set up on a journey to provide governance of the nation and transform the lives of people. So he just became the driver. He performed far much better in his 7 years than what we've seen in the last 2 years. That is sufficient to make them feel very uncomfortable. Look, on education, I don't even know why you'd ask me to clarify, because that clarification was given even better. Go to schools and see what this policy of free education has done. What he was simply saying is that policy was not properly thought through, and its implementation has created problems rather than solving problems. When it came to rising, look, I said earlier that opinions are forming, outside there. People are getting disgruntled every day because this government is pushing policies that are not user-friendly for the Zambians. And they're not even daring to come and explain to the Zambians. Maybe if the UPND adopted a culture of beginning to explain to the people the ramifications of the policies they're pursuing, maybe, just maybe, people will be able to understand them. But people are getting disgruntled because of what is going on. And how many times have the UPND refused to give the opposition the freedom to participate in the political process? You've never seen a single opposition political party hold a rally in the last 2 years. The president has held rallies in Southern Province, so many, and a couple of them in Copper Belt Province. When he, under guise of going to initiate a program or another, he ends up having a rally. We have said, give us permission to also be able to have our own rallies. They have spanned all of them. And when Dr. Edgar Lungu was saying, look, people are getting disgruntled, he was only expressing what has come to his ears, hearing from people who are getting disgruntled about the fact that the playing field in the political platform is getting smaller. Remember, this is a government that promised there's going to be wider freedoms when they came into power. What we are seeing is contrary to what that promised. You think people are going to sit quiet and keep quiet and not say anything? Look, Dr. Lungu is only expressing what the Zambians are saying. And Dr. Lungu is saying, the beauty about social media is it always reminds you of what was happening. When this government has risen up in arms against Dr. Lungu because of the statement he's made, the Zambians have remembered. that His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, when he was in the opposition, he repeatedly called for an early election. He repeatedly mentioned that Zambians were disgruntled against the Patriotic Front, but you never heard any member of Edgar Lungu's government threatening Mr. Hakainde Hichilema for making those statements. So why should you threaten Dr. Edgar Lungu when he just mentions something that you feel? In fact, he's saying he doesn't want us to get to that level, but he's saying Zambians are getting disgruntled and the government must pay attention to it. If I was, Jack Mwimbo, and I hear that statement, I would try and check myself in the seat. I'll try and see, okay, where is it that we are going wrong, and remedy the situation, rather than pour scorn at somebody who is just observing something that is correctly happening on the ground and people are getting, dissatisfied with the status quo.
You can be part of the program by calling the number 0955-221515 for your voice calls, 0955-221515. This is the Thursday edition of the Burning Issue, and our guest is Lukashya, Member of Parliament and Legal Chairman for the Patriotic Front Central Committee, Honorable George Chisanga. 0955-221515. Let's see if we have a caller. Hello.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you? May we know who's on the line?
You're speaking to the Lusaka in Lusaka.
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Honorable Chisanga, good morning.
Good morning, sir. I didn't get the name.
Patricia.
Okay.
I think for me, you are explaining issues very, very well, Honorable. And I'm also shocked to hear from Taji saying that Zambians who are celebrating, who are happy with the current situation in Zambia. I would rather also to go and see such people, because the situation on the ground, it's really very bad, to the extent that people are sleeping with empty stomachs. How can be people happy being stressed from the markets where they are getting even the liquor to feed their families? It's a study development. They're happening in Parliament. I also wonder, where are we heading to? Because by having members of Parliament, you are the people, you are the voice to the voiceless. Now you cannot speak nicely and you cannot debate properly in Parliament, because you don't know, you have been imposed leaders who are not even chosen by yourselves. These things are not just affecting the members of Parliament. All of us, we are affected in one or the other. But I have a question before I go to you, about Chisanga. My question is that this problem we are facing today, even anger, whereby people are telling people to find food, are we going to be just in this situation up to 2026? Or maybe there are solutions?
I haven't heard the question, sir.
Hello, Brother Chisha. Hello.
One or the other.
Hello.
Otherwise, we are dying here. Things are very bad. Are we going to be in this situation for the next 2 years? I think that's what I can say for now.
All right, thank you. 0955-221515. 0955-221515 is the number to call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
You're through to Burning Issue. May we know who's on the line and where are you calling us from?
My name is Collins. I'm calling you from Lusaka, Zambia.
Collins, please go ahead.
Mr. Mutabi, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back to our country.
Thank you.
It's one Zambia, one nation. We shouldn't allow people to look like they are the only one who can rule this country. This country is a democratic country. You rule, you go, we forget, we bring another people. We can't allow the same people to be ruling us, just changing the goalposts. We are not going to allow as Zambians. If there is really a democracy, after next Hakainde Hichilema, there must be a Kaunde man like myself to take the leadership. That is one Zambia, one nation. Coming to the Honorable. You see, Honorable, you are a very, very, very good lawyer who understands the politics of this country. You remember that Nakachinda sold the MMG to PF, and the PF made sure that Never Smumba suffered in the hand of Nakachinda. And you are not seeing this from Mausampa. As long as the government of the day has recognized Mausampa to say he's the leader of PF, the game is over. Let us not pretend. The game is over. Number two, who is going to allow President Edgar, as a former president of this country, to firing in the nomination papers for the president? Who is going to allow it? All those angles, you are not looking at it. You are just looking at the long direction. You are not opening up your mind. Bwana, this is politics. You have been in politics for too long. I thought you are the person who's supposed to be open up your mind, open up your, eyes to see, to say this what you are doing, this government is doing. This is what us also, if we are doing to these people. Do you think the president is so low to allow you to do things in a manner which is pleasing yourself, whereby you yourself, you are not giving him chance to mobilize his party? Unless, I can tell you and I can assure you, unless another party apart from PF and your leadership is the one which can take leadership from Hakainde Hichilema.
Thank you.
Not PF, that I can tell you.
Thank
PF
you.
will never come.
Thank you for calling. Thank you.
Take that in mind.
Thank you. We will take one more call, then you can respond. 0955 221515. Good morning. You're through to Burning Issue.
Good morning, Herbert.
How are you? May we know who's on the line?
This is Mulenga in Kanyama.
Mulenga, please go ahead.
And good morning, Honorable.
Good morning, Mamlenga. How are you today?
Fine, thank you, sir. I would like to find out about the Patriotic Front position, because we are getting something on the ground that there are factions. So which one is the legitimate Patriotic Front? And then the second thing I would like to find out from you as the legal counsel in the Patriotic Front. I don't know whether you are together with Mr. Mao Sampa, because that is the only legal entity as of now which is recognized by the Registrar of Societies. So when you speak as PF, I don't know really. And then I would like also your clarity. Last time we heard about former President Edgar Lungu trying to come up with a political party. Is it something that you are still considering, or maybe there is yet another way that ECL is going to be able to come back to power? Is there another thing apart from the alliance, which is also trying to mobilize in another way? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And before you respond, let me just quickly read some messages that we've received via the 5FM Facebook page. The first one is from Bax Chichi. He's saying, good morning, 5FM. And DJ Dazo, you are in private sector now. Ask burning questions, not like you are at ZNBC where you're afraid of being fired by Mr. Tabo Kawana. This is a platform where the truth must be heard. So don't ask questions as if Kawana is looking at you. And the other one is from Chuma Favor Chilekwa, moderator, very biased. I'm not too sure what it means. Anyway, that's his opinion. We'll respect it. The other one is from Penzi Kings. Do we expect fuel to be subsidized when you're back in power? Then there's also David Kapwaya Sakeni saying some paid up callers will start being very committed to the core, and the principal is lied to by the same callers and those who pay them. Then the last message is under the UPND. This country is gone. We have no independent judiciary. Zambia police, CCZ, and parliament, they know that they have failed in all areas. So they want to, it's quite long. Where are we now? Yeah, they want to defend themselves by turning these institutions into being spineless institutions. And here in a Georgia compound, there are promises, and what they have delivered is a zero. Just let the opposition unite, then we'll redeem ourselves from what is happening. Then maybe that's just this. David again, Sakeni says Collins is a tribal. Who talks about tribe in this era? Very backward. Well, that's his comment there. Yes, you may respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mutabi. I think I'll start by speaking about Chichi. I think Chichi is just your moya. You know, he's trying to speak at the level of Chimboya. I think you've been very objective in my assessment. We've had a very good dialogue. We continue to have a very good dialogue. The first caller, Mr. Chichi, I think was just trying to observe what I had said myself, that we have a problem as a nation, and we must be able to recognize that we have a problem, because if we don't recognize that we have a problem, we are not going to address ourselves to the solutions to the problem. Okay, Collins has made a very passionate position. Firstly, he makes the point that, there should not only be one grouping that should think they're entitled to rule. I agree. Zambia is one unitary state, and there should never be only one grouping that should feel that they've got the right, or they're the only ones who should be given the opportunity to rule this country. PF has never claimed to be angelic, to have an angelic status, or to be the only political party that would like to continue ruling this nation. PF contested in a multi-party state system, environment, and wrested power from MMD, and the PF ran the country for 10 years. They have handed over power to UPND. That's exactly how it must be. The thinking that now, after Hakainde Hichilema has ruled, there must come a Kaonde president. Look, I would love to have a Kaonde president. What I wouldn't want is to have a Kaonde president who is birthed out of a tribal agenda. I think that's what is going to be a problem. There are so many Kaonde friends that I've got who I know can run this country very well. But let them come and compete on a political platform that brings together all tribes. Let them be able to sell themselves on an agenda of a national program rather than a tribal program. I think he's thinking that somebody must be a president simply because he's Kaonde is what I find Collins' position misplaced. Yes, I would like to have a Kaonde president. I even want to expect that we can have a Kaonde president in 2026, but let that person come out of an agenda which is national rather than tribal. He said a lot of things about Honorable Nakachinda. I would have wanted Nakachinda himself to come and defend himself, but I want to argue that what was happening in the MMD camp during when they were fighting for leadership is very different from what is happening in the Patriotic Front camp in leadership. In Patriotic Front, it is looking very, very clear that the Mao's faction is being sponsored by the UPND. And that's why I disagree with Collins when he says that with Mao Sampa where he's sitting right now, PF is game over. I repeat, sir, PF is a living organism. You can even kill all of us who are there. This party will remain, it will resurface, and it will come back and participate in the political process. The idea of suggesting that ECA will not be allowed to file any nomination, I think Zambians must begin to mature away from this. Firstly, Dr. Edgar Lungu has not said he is a candidate for 2026. He has mentioned clearly why he has come back to the political platform. He has come back to salvage the lost democratic credentials. He's made it very clear. And that's why he has immediately embraced the idea of UKA to suggest that, look, there must be a leader who will come from, like I said earlier, a national grouping. He is just but one of those leaders who are providing leadership in the opposition. And he has made his statement to the public repeatedly. This idea of thinking that a political party that has ruled must be vanquished and must be kicked out, must leave, is what is killing this country. I made the point one time that maybe in 1997, if we had thought about UNIP coming back, we would have salvaged many problems that MMD had created. But see, the MMD was spirited to kill UNIP. And Zambians sat back the way this gentleman is sitting back, that PF must die, so that another political party, maybe with it.
Just like you also killed MMD when you were in power.
We didn't kill MMD. MMD is still there. MMD is still there. We didn't kill MMD.
But it's not fun.
It's
not vibrant.
But MMD, they killed. I don't even think they killed each other, because why is Nevers Mumba still the president of MMD if they killed themselves? My brother Nevers Mumba is the president of MMD up to now. That scuffle that they had between him and Mutati was an internal wrangle. But somebody suggesting that PF was participating in that, I don't think I see any visible
So
hand.
even the ones
of
you
the
have
Patriotic
now
Front.
internal wrangles?
Which ones?
The two factions that have been birthed in the
I have
PF?
made a point repeatedly here that ours have been instigated by the party that is in power. Clearly, I've demonstrated that. I've given you instances where the leadership of the UPND has embraced this agenda.
And MMDs wasn't instigated by the ruling
It was
party.
not. You need to point out to me what they did to instigate that. What did PF do? They didn't do anything. The PF actually had said at that time they were willing to work with the MMD as long as they resolve their factions. President Edgar Lungu was on record in the media saying that he knows that the MMD are having an internal wrangle, but we'll wait for them to resolve their problem before we can, decide how to work with them. And after they came from their faction, they started working together. I was even hoping that maybe right now, Mao Sampa's faction can begin to work with UPND to show that maybe this is what they intended to do. But that's not what UPND is intending to do. UPND is intending to use and dispose of Mao Sampa and his faction. So it's a completely different scenario, which cannot be compared to what the Patriotic Front was doing. But my point is that if we are going to develop our democracy as a nation, we should allow political parties that have gone out of power to remain on fold and to reorganize themselves without destabilization by the party which is in power, and given the opportunity, if the Zambians want them, to come back to power. That's what democracy must do. Okay, Mlenga, I think, has asked questions also which are similar about Mao Sampa's faction, and asking whether me, as Mr. Chisanga, am with Mao Sampa's faction, and the other things of ECL coming up with a political party. Firstly, the position is with the Patriotic Front is there are no factions in the Patriotic Front. There's only one political party called Patriotic Front, whose president is Edgar Lungu, and whose central committee I sit in myself. This renegade group that is set itself as the leadership of PF is a sponsored agenda by the UPND. I repeat this many, many times.
But call them what you want, they're in existence.
Look, you need to speak about them relative to what they are doing to the Patriotic Front.
Mm-hmm.
The PF has remained intact, even with them having created what they have created. The PF leadership, I was in Northern Province last month myself. I was engaging leadership in Northern Province, which aligns itself with ECL as a leader. So yes, they are there, but the reality is, are they providing the leadership that is needed for the PF to say, this is a political party, these are our leaders? They are not doing that. They are failing. Most of the times, they are romancing themselves with the party in power. They are moving around, flying around with the party in power. Even in parliament, the leader of opposition, whenever he speaks, look, I don't want to sound defamatory to Chavinga, who's a friend of mine, but the reality is that they are not providing the leadership that is required. Okay, and is ECL coming up with a political party? I've never heard Dr. Edgar Chagolungu saying I'm forming a political party. Dr. Edgar Chagolungu came back on the 28th of October and said I'm the president of the Patriotic Front, and he was from the beginning. Others, I think, have asked whether we're going to bring back fuel subsidies. For me, it is work in progress. We have experienced what these, and there's no determinate policy by the UPND on management of the energy sector. None at all. Okay, what they found, the energy infrastructure they found, is the one they are running around with. Everything, I've never heard UPND saying we are putting up an energy infrastructure somewhere. They just came to complete what the Patriotic Front had started.
Well, government is continuity.
Well, it's continuity, but I'm making a point that for me, by now, I should have heard them talking about maybe putting up another, hydropower station, for instance, or a coal-fired, electricity infrastructure, for them to say we are doing something that's going to bring about, supply in the electricity.
They haven't finished their 5 years.
Boss, this is 3 years.
Yeah, there's still time.
On the first day, you would know if I'm going to walk a journey of 100 kilometers with this individual or not. You must see it from the beginning. For me, what I have seen is that the UPND has come into power, unfortunately, to come and just make deals with those who are going to run our economic infrastructure. Look at the mining policies, the way they are running around with. It tells you that their allegiance is to allow those who export capital into this country, in the mining sector, to come and reap the highest benefit, even when it doesn't benefit the Zambians. That is where the problem starts from. And as long as this is the agenda they're going to manage for 5 years, mark my words, Mr. Mutabi, we are not going to see benefit for the Zambian people. We are not even going to see money coming out of tax earnings from the mining sector, because even two weeks ago, ZRI was talking about how the mining companies structure, their tax policies. I have worked in an international organization myself. I have studied international taxation myself. I know that these guys who are in oil, in minerals and other extractive industries, they are very, very organized and sophisticated when it comes to structuring their tax affairs. And they need to be met with a country that has patriots who understand clearly what they're looking for the benefit of the locals, so that when they engage with these investors, so to say, they engage at arm's length, so that we get a rateable benefit from participating in the sector, such as mining and even electricity itself, and even oil, because I know that Zambia have got oil reserves in the north. I hope that when we begin to implement the extracting industry in the oil, we're going to have policies that benefit even local Zambians at that time.
Now, when you talk about the UPND cutting deals in the mining sector, I want to take you back to the issue of KCM. It was under your watch as PF in power that KCM collapsed.
It didn't collapse.
And the UPND is trying to bring it back to life now. They're saying you created that mess that they're trying to sort out.
Mr. Mutabi, let's speak like people that live in Zambia. Let me tell you, the KCM saga was a disaster for the nation from the beginning, from inception. At the time that the KCM came into Zambia through Vedanta, they got into a deal with Mr. Manawasa. Mr. Manawasa, with good intentions, allowed them to come into the country. They managed the affairs of their company for 25 years without giving Zambians any benefit. They were declaring all manner of losses. In fact, for me, if you went to KCM during the time of MMD and even part of the Patriotic Front, you will have discovered that Vedanta was not even a mining company. Vedanta was an investor that sat like a don somewhere and was getting, people to subcontract. Every part of KCM was subcontracted. I am currently liquidating a company that was subcontracting KCM called CMC, an Italian company, which was mining shaft number 3, the most complex, mining shaft to mine in. There were other South African companies that were contracted to mine in other areas, but KCM was sitting somewhere there and declaring all manner of losses. And when it came to collecting revenue, they had employed only Indians. They're the ones who are managing the higher levels of KCM and considering the actual financial status of that company. And that's why Patriotic Front felt it prudent that, look, we can't continue being cheated by an investor who has been in this country for 25 years. The government decided then, under Edgar Lungu, to repossess KCM with a view to realigning it and recreating an investment portfolio that allows us to be able to take 50-50 benefits
with an investor.
It was in the process. Look, KCM was only grabbed from them, I think, 2019, 2020, shortly before the elections. And when KCM was grabbed, Mopani followed suit. They discovered that this government has now opened its eyes. It would like to make sure that Zambians begin to benefit from the mineral resources that they have. And Mopani followed suit and said, look, we can't also continue. Come and get a tenement. We got into a deal that, frankly speaking, was lopsided for Zambians. But like I said, to lead a nation, you have to use both your head and your chest. You have to have feelings for the Zambian people. We knew that what Mopani was going to do to us was going to make that mine unprofitable. But we thought in the long run, this man can be transformed, it can be turned over. If we had a success story with KCM, we would replicate it in Mopani. So we took over these mines and started running them. Unfortunately, when our friends came through, they decided to review everything that we were doing. Up to now, look, ping pong with KCM. KCM has been coming to Zambia. There have been announcements even on the floor of the House of Parliament.
Cases.
Which court cases? They have stopped those court cases. They agreed by consent to stop court cases. Mr. Mutabi, you must be updated. KCM demanded that government must get into a consent order to stop those court cases, bring them to the boardroom and resolve the matters. They've been sitting on the boardroom up to now. KCM is not operating. Mopani has just gone into a deal that smells, that you can't think that any Zambian could have allowed himself to get into that deal with that, I think, buy-based institution. Professor Clive Chira recently had made a write-up. He did an article where he was saying there must be something wrong with us Zambians. That, we can have this mine sitting here, and we have local resources, local expertise that can actually be allowed to mine, and we still think that somebody from outside the country should be the one to come and take that mine. So the UPND government has taken us far back, 25 years back, when it comes to realizing our mineral wealth and our mineral potential. Unfortunately, I do not expect that we can get anything of value unless they can achieve. And that's why I said earlier, I was slightly happy when I heard that in their own cabinet, they are beginning to realize this. Like I said earlier, when you acknowledge that there's a problem, you have just kicked the first step to try and resolve that problem. But my thinking is that in resolving this problem, the UPND is going to be objective, and they're even prepared to go to bed with the enemy, which is maybe the opposition political party, to agree a position that allows for these mines to be utilized for the benefit not only of the foreign investors, but also for the Zambians. For me, that's a clinker that we need. It has been unavailable from the time that UPND took power. I'm hoping that by that declaration they made in cabinet, they are now shifting the policy to make sure that the mining investment begins to benefit the Zambians in the short term and the long run.
0955-221515 is the number to call, and for your text messages, you can use the number 0761912493. Hello, good morning. You're through to Burning Issue.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Fine, how are you? May we know who's on the line?
You are talking to Comrade Morgan within Lusaka.
Yes, please, Comrade Morgan, go ahead and make your contribution.
Yeah. My submission. First, good morning, everybody, and good morning, the listeners.
Good morning, Morgan.
Yeah. You are speaking very well, but for me, as PF as this stand now, it is divided into two. There's a faction leader. You know, today as we're speaking, do you agree that Mayo Sampa is the president of the PF? He went to convention, declared as a winner. He has a chief whip in the parliament. He has a secretary general called Morgan Ngona. And they are running the party. Even go to the Reserve Society and you know who is now running the PF. And that's why you and your group ran to UCA toward a united Kwacha alliance with small political party. But the point what I'm trying to say here is only to go to the people of Zambia. The people of Zambia, they are the one who take anybody to State House. They are the one who have got the power in their hands today. To get my voters card, that's the most powerful than any weapon. That voters card is more powerful. Soldiers to salute you, police salute you, is the people, poor people who are in compounds today. So for us, what you need to talk is about the beauty economy, so that people can have a better life instead of just talking. But how? The question people are asking, where is the stance of the people today? We need to reduce cost of living. We need to, and this time where we are is a very hard time. Today we have drought, energy shortages. This is a difficult time. We need to sit together and share ideas. How can you keep our people the way forward in our country? I think, thank you very much, my brother.
Thank you for calling. Thank you. The number remains 0955-221515. Hello, good morning. You're through to Burning Issue.
Good morning. Good morning, Honorable MP.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
May we know who's on the line?
It's Nathan Banda.
Mr. Banda, go ahead and make your contribution.
Yes, I'd like to make a submission. You know, the only sad part is that the gentleman there is busy marketing Edgar Lungu. For me, I mean, look, for example,
Hello, your line is somewhat muffled. Hello?
Hello?
Okay, you can go ahead now.
Okay. So you have two children who are writing exams, and the other one gets 50, or gets 40, the other one gets 35. And you begin to say, no, well, let this one who has gotten 35 be there. The other one was good. They're both fair. They're both fair. It means even Edgar Lungu failed.
All right. Thank you. Your line is not quite good. You need to call us back, but we've gotten the gist of your contribution. Thank you. Let's take one more call. I'll read some messages, then you can respond. 0955-221515 is the number to call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
May we know who's on the line?
From Garden Compact.
Name again?
Yeah.
la PF tenti wale ku PF inasira. Edgar kwa ndivina PF inasira. Unakafa sauka. Edgar Lungu baachika bana bambiri maningi. Ngole ndimo mnazileta zonse. Watoto vinatupika ndimo mnaleta yonse. Pura capitalism sio kibwerere. Are you serious?
Well, the line got cut there. Not that we cut him, no. I'm sure the guest can confirm. Just now, let me read some messages. Morning, Mr. Mutabi. It's painful to sit and watch my country regressing to the dark ages. I've lived in the UK going on to three decades now. I've seen democracy. There is absolutely no doubting Sampa's kicked the can in the long grass, shut his ears and buried his head in the sand, praying this will go away. This is why we'll never develop, because what happens to him if the government changes? I fear for my country. What some people said when they were in opposition cannot be said now for fear of being arrested. Some people called the Constitutional Court judges corrupt, allegedly. The court itself was called a kangaroo court. And am I going to be asked to produce evidence? It's there, Chirufia from Leicester in the UK. The other message is, good morning. Why are people so scared of ECL? Let him fail again. That is to your advantage. Message from Lawrence. Another message is, good morning, Dazo. Please let the MP and lawyer explain to the nation what the law states on a former president who commits a crime while not in office, because I heard him saying that a former president has immunity even if he or she commits a crime while not in office. But how come later President Kaunda was arrested and put in detention for days on elections before PF was divided into two? PF has been losing by elections. What is wrong with a councillor being given a job, Kakoma, in Lusaka? Then some messages received from the 5FM Facebook page. The guest should check the message you left, and you want us to go back to this? No, Bwana. Do you know that as of 2021, Zambia's debt was 520 billion Kwacha? Dividing this by 20 million Zambians, it's 260,000 Kwacha per citizen, either old or young. This is called data burden. That message is from, let me just see the name there, Stanley Simujulu. The other message from Clarence Mwape Katebe. Kindly ask the Honorable Member of Parliament, since he demonized the World Bank, government has been implementing a number of projects with support from World Bank, even during PF government, and UPND government has continued with the same projects. For example, GEO, which comprises Keeping Girls in School Initiative, social cash transfer, and supporting women's livelihood. Another project is Zambia Education Enhancement Project, which has continued constructing schools from the time PF was in power. Can the MP explain why the World Bank has now become evil in UPND government? For now, you can please go ahead and respond.
Okay, it's quite a handful. Let me just see which one I can start with, because I was taking a few notes when. Okay, so again, we start with Morgan. Morgan is saying that PF is divided. I think I've belabored this point. You know, I can only emphasize that. Look, the very fact that the UPND has been responsible, you know, for creating the appointment of the alternative leadership in Parliament, you know, changing the records at the Register of Societies, it does not make Mao Sampa a faction in the Patriotic Front. They are renegades. The Patriotic Front is still united under one president. You know. Nathan Banda, I think, is talking about, he thinks that by speaking about Edgar Lungu in the manner that I'm speaking, I'm actually marketing Edgar Lungu. Far from it. Mr. Lungu himself has not declared intention to stand in 2026. I can't begin to market him. Mr. Lungu has come back to try and salvage the falling democratic credentials for the nation. That's a declaration he's made. And as a Democrat myself, I support that stance. And also he came to salvage. The party was being robbed. We were being robbed in terms of leadership of the party. He came back to take the helm of the leadership of the party. Who should not support that? Because that's the only way we survive as a political party. I said earlier, we need to move away from this concept that a political party that has left power must not be allowed to come back. There must be, we can't be doing the same things every time and expect these different results. As long as we've got a scenario where if a political party loses power, we allow it to go into oblivion, we will not elevate our democratic credentials. And we need to start by this, which is why for us in the Patriotic Front, we have remained firm that we will still be members of Patriotic Front. We will provide opposition political leadership until, if Zambians want to vote Patriotic Front back into power in 2026, we will contest. We would just like the UPND to become reasonable and to provide leadership so that we are allowed to participate in the political process. Chirufi, I think, has spoken my heart out. It is saddening, and not only for UPND, but even also for Patriotic Front. You see, for me, Herbert, when I was even as a Patriotic Front member, okay, when I was a president of LAS and still member of Patriotic Front, whenever Patriotic Front did something wrong, I was the first one to take to the media and condemn the Patriotic Front with what they were doing, because I think that every political organization, the first major job they have in the nation is to help the country to develop its credentials for democracy. And anybody who is not democratic, to me, creates a basis for me to be repulsive to them. And that's why I used to criticize, the Patriotic Front at the time that they were in government and they did something I thought was not democratic. Somebody asked a question, I will just repeat it. Why are people scared of Edgar Lungu? Edgar Lungu is a Zambian. He is entitled to participate in the political processes. He is entitled to participate in the leadership of Patriotic Front. He is only helping the party to remain in power, or to remain as in the opposition while it prepares itself to participate in the 2026 election. Okay. Somebody asked the question, what should happen to a former president who has committed a crime? To start with, Dr. Lungu has not committed any crime. Somebody is just thinking out there that by making the statements that he's been making about leadership, he's committing crimes. But quite frankly, somebody just needs to go and read the Constitution clearly on immunity. It is very, very clear that a president continues to enjoy his immunity, even when he's out of office. So Dr. Lungu, wherever he's sitting, whatever he's doing currently, he is enjoying that immunity. And for the benefit of those who support the UPND, even President Hakainde Hichilema, when he leaves power in 2026, wherever he's going to be sitting, he will be enjoying that immunity. And the Constitution provides for a clear process on how that immunity can be removed. The utterances we've been hearing from ministers and other leaders of the UPND are being made purely because of the fear that Dr. Lungu has instilled in them by coming back to the political mainstay and begin to provide leadership in the Patriotic Front. Okay. I think that the other, Simujulu was saying, was talking about the Zambian debt. And unfortunately, I didn't record the figures he gave you. But even without recording them, those figures are ill-informed. They are not correct. We know what debt we left as the Patriotic Front when we left power. We also know how much debt UPND has contracted, in the last 2.5 years they've been in power. On a comparison, they've actually committed to more debt in 2 years than PF had committed in 5 years. So when you make those comparisons, you must be alive to the fact of what's happening today as well as what was happening before. There's somebody who's spoken about why I'm demonizing the World Bank. Look, the World Bank is a partner. We are part of the World Bank ourselves, and we are only worried about the terms and conditions that are now attaching to the projects they're doing in this nation. Yes, they've been doing work. We've been partnering with them. But like I said earlier, our Minister of Finance was busy towards the tail end of the Patriotic Front in government, engaging with the Bretton Woods institutions when they wanted to bring back the IMF program, which they brought back under the UPND. They are going to come back, yes, even with us in power. But the position I say, and this is what my sister must be able to understand, we need to level the stage of negotiations with these people. We need to level the stage of engagement with them so that they don't give us what are called onerous terms of compliance. The IMF programs, wherever they've been implemented, they've collapsed, they have not worked, they have left the country worse off than it was. Kaunda had an IMF program here, he had to cancel it. The MMD had an IMF program, it left the country worse off until Mr. Manawasa came in with prudent local resources of local abilities of managing the economy. And we hit the completion point of HIPIC because of discipline, because of having a minister also who understood what they were doing. And my take is that with what the UPND is doing, they are making it very difficult for any other political, because to start with, they don't have a way of getting out of this problem. They're sinking us into this problem without devising a way in which they're going to come out. Because I said earlier, if this government was doing something for the benefit of Zambians, it should not have been very difficult for them to be explaining to the people. In fact, this president is on record of having said, I will be telling Zambian people once a month, I'll be dating them to tell them what we're doing. He only did it twice. And when he noticed that he wasn't getting through to Zambian people, he stopped. And now it's just quiet. They're implementing policies.
There are ministries that are explaining government policies.
I've never heard a minister beyond, in my assessment, beyond the ministerial statement. Ministerial statements are basically reactive. When something is happening, they come and react to it on the floor of the house. But I've never heard a minister date the press and say, this is what we are doing. It has never happened. The UPND is moving like a silent train. People are not knowing what is going on. People are not being informed what the government is doing for their benefit. And this is what is causing disgruntlement. Like I said earlier, Bwana Mkubwa, we need to recognize that we have a problem. Even the lack of information to the Zambian people is causing disgruntlement because they don't know where they're going to be tomorrow. Look, what explanation do we have, for instance, apart from the declaration that the president made that the hunger situation is a national disaster? Previously, what did you hear about? You were just hearing, maize has come from South Africa, it is being exported to DRC. Oh, now they have stolen national service. You actually never heard a minister come and update the nation to explain what is happening. The Minister of Mines was trying to update the nation about their engagement with KCM. The disaster is that whatever the Minister of Mines said was proved to be true, to be false, sorry. He makes a statement today, 2 weeks down the line, you discover what he said is not correct. The correct person reviews itself. We have signed the KCM deal. He comes back after 3 weeks. Oh, the deal was not signed. Actually, it was a verbal deal. Now we are being told KCM has come back. They even went and lined up people in Rwanda that they'll come and open on a particular date. Up to now, I'm speaking to you, KCM has not opened. Why? Because this government is even afraid of engaging its own people to explain to them. So the point that I wanted to emphasize is that we need to be able to have terms with these Bretton Woods institutions that are palatable. And most importantly, these terms must provide for what is called a social safety net, which is why the social cash transfer was being implemented even the time that Patriotic Front was in government, even the time that MMD was in government. So it is not strange that they continue to implement it even now. But in my assessment, it will even become wider. Why? Because the UPND is pursuing, policies with Bretton Woods institutions that are making Zambians worse off. Look at fuel. Look at how expensive it is for somebody to move from home to go to work today, or just to go and visit. Look at electricity. How many times have they increased electricity from then they came into power? There's no social safety net that provides for some kind of comfort for the Zambian people when we're implementing these, quite frankly, important programs. But the reality is that a government must be daring, but also a government must be able to lead from the chest. You must feel for the people that gave you power. Power belongs to the people, like somebody was saying, on those who called. If you don't use it properly, people have got the ability to take it back and give it to somebody else.
Let's delve into the current situation regarding the Office of the Auditor General, specifically focusing on Mr. Ron Mwambwa, who is still serving an acting capacity. Given that your party initially opposed his appointment, what is your perspective on this matter?
Look, if you had prepared me on that, I didn't see the list of questions, but I'll be very generic. The Auditor General, we made it very clear, and that's why the ratification was not brought to Parliament, because we pointed out the fact that Mr. Mwambwa currently does not qualify to be Auditor General in the Office of the Auditor General. The question that now everybody is asking is he qualified to act in an office where he's not qualified for appointment? That is open to interpretation. But the one legal view has it that if you are not qualified to hold a substantive office, you cannot be asked to act in that office. But also, the common balance in practice is that an acting position must be held for not more than 6 months. But we've been sitting with Mr. Mwambwa it's now beyond a year. He's been acting in that office. We have actually demanded that the government must find somebody suitable to be appointed to the Office of Auditor General. Of course, it is up to them to make a decision, but Zambians are judging, whether what they're doing is right or not. But the reality, the fact is that Mr. Mwambwa is not qualified to occupy the office of a president because it's beyond the retirement age.
Recently, the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, announced that corruption cases will now undergo trial within a 5-month period. How did your party receive this news, considering the fact that some former cabinet ministers are facing some corruption charges.
I was here on Radio 5 where I had made a statement that unfortunately the fight against corruption in this country has been reduced to nothing more than a witch hunt against members of the Patriotic Front, leaders of the Patriotic Front, and those who are associated with the Patriotic Front. If you have seen, there's even been adjustments, of the legal system to make sure that it responds to this chase against members of the Patriotic Front even quicker. The amendment that the president was basing his declaration on were recently introduced into the law to make sure that they expedite the so-called financial and commercial crimes unit in the court structure. My position has been as clear on this matter. Zambia needs a wholesale law reform, not only the laws relating to financial crimes. There are so many people that have had cases in courts in Zambia that have lasted more than 20 years, have not been resolved. Why wasn't the government motivated to try and adjust the legal system to make sure that the law begins to respond urgently to these issues? There's a simple reason why the president was making that declaration. It's because the declaration he had made that he was going to fight corruption, especially against the Patriotic Front, has not yielded any results up to now, and is getting uncomfortable. And he thinks that by making those declarations, now we're going to see, the sunrise in the fight against corruption. Here is the basis why I condemn the UPND's fight against corruption. The first thing the UPND did when they came into power was to take the investigative wings and put them under the office of the president. The DEC reports to the office of the president, the SEC reports to the office of the president, even the public defender reports to the office of the president. My argument with that is that then you compromise the independence of these, they're called investigative wings. Unfortunately, when you have such a scenario, you pay very restricted attention to corruption which is taking place currently. If you heard, I think it was last week when FIC, which also, by the way, reports to the president, office of the president, produced that trends report, which indicated about I think it's $2.8 billion was siphoned out of this country in the last 1 year. $2.8 billion is not a small amount of money. What Zambians expected is that somebody was going to swing into action and begin to say to the Zambians, we will investigate this report. Unfortunately, this is the third year that the trends report has been produced by FIC, which has not had any following. And also, in my assessment, the president should not be the one to begin to make declarations about the fact that now we are going to be seeing cases ending very quickly. That is interference. I have argued many times that when we passed the Constitution of 2016, we distributed sovereignty in 3 ways. The president is a sovereign office. The member of parliament is a sovereign office, and a judge and even magistrate are a sovereign office. This is judicial sovereignty. It is unheard of that the head of the executive sovereignty in the name of a president should be the one who will be declaring that now we're going to be finishing a quick completion of cases before the courts of law. Where is the chief justice? Where is the judge in charge? Where is the presiding magistrate who is responsible for this? The ones who have the constitutional mandate to oversee the dispute resolution or the crime prevention in the nation.
I think I heard something also from the Chief Justice.
Well, you are thinking. I actually have never heard such a statement.
No, he said something about the same 5 months.
If he did, you would be the right person to do that. I didn't expect the president to be able to say that. But like I told you, for me, this is a continuation of which hand that the UPND government has against the Patriotic Front leadership. The only people you're going to find when you go to the financial crime courts is the Patriotic Front leadership.
But if they're the ones who committed the crimes, who else do you want to find?
How do you explain the 2.8 billion that was reported last week? How do you explain that the 2.3 that was reported last year and the one that was reported in 2021?
I'm sure they will get to that.
When? After we change government?
I'm not too sure.
Mr. Mutabi, this corruption fight, I repeat, was lost at the time that the UPND passed Gazette Notice number 1123 of 2021, where they brought all these investigative wings, before to start reporting to the president. They've compromised their independence. They will not investigate any corruption that is taking place under UPND, believe it or not, unless Zambians put them under pressure.
Let's take our last call as I will begin to wind up. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Moderator.
Good morning. May we know who's on the line?
Yes. One Yongo Jirogota here.
Where are you calling us from?
From Shibuyunji Central, yes, exactly, sir.
What's the name again?
Yongo Jirogota, no other than.
Okay,
Good morning,
Yongo.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
I'm not hearing.
Is it 5 FM? Yes.
Yes, it is. Burning issue.
Yes. Honorable, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Very fine, yes. Mr. Herbert.
Yes, sir.
Yes, do you understand the Tonga? Because I want to express myself in Tonga. Twakatandabalahi mwami twakatandabala leka tata ndivandige ngwani Zambia wani nation inatwa higa yo imumulaga okuta chotu vandiga ingatwajihiva twaba mumuni. Number 1. Oyo mubandi ngomu gwetega muzumana na kambo mbuli bagubushitula iya tuntu tu party ingi yo tuya kuzamu mubandi oyo bakusana bweza any politics ulicho tuya awo keep it up. Number 2, nyanda kuba mubuyo uli ba honorable gumagani ama by election baji bikantangala kwamba kuti tubona ba councillors gabazwa mugati muyuno gabawuka mugati mukulumende. Is it not true kwamba kuti ejija bakambo gaba UPND bayita employ bantu bangi more especially in education sector more than 40,000 workers. Tena tajiri kwamba kuti chija pakuti aba bantu babe ajoroja kunjira mu government awatena. Tena nijirubire ebintu kijibebo. Tena mwakunjira nywebo. Na mwapirugira mulimbo mbandiga. Hena muyakubaga hakuti batabi ayorwe eje bamagubuchi bamakansela kuti batangire mu kulumende. Question. Number 2. Chauba buti ingulumende ya UPND usponsor muntu wa PF. Nijiribo mugato mu honorable amutwambire gabotu. Kulumende ilela usponsor opposition party. Hena na elijagitiga. Mulimbo yagitiga mwemo mujamba. Hena tagiyo nwenyono ba PF ono kulibunga akuja na muntu umusupporter. Atende munganda ya mirawo. Hena jirimu mulawo mu munganda ya mirawo. Wamba utima honorable members ate gwebule mu kuli national speaker kambu biba mu hotela. Na omuya munganda ya mirawo ba honorable mwebo no muri gogo. Mwali bulombo yakutirya nganda yende buti.
Twarumba mdara.
Number 3.
Twarumba ya manajindi.
Wait, number 4 question in conclusion. Mboboti igwa kuba former president mugati mujihi na kobuli olobo mwebo amena mutwambire na abubi yabi kobuli olobo mwebo Twarumba
tata.
And I thought I understand Tonga. I think I don't.
You do.
I'll be a bit. Was that the last question we're taking, or do we have other questions?
Yeah, I think that's the last one. Yeah.
Bajongo, thank you very, very much. Look, I do agree that the UPND, yes, has employed a lot of people into civil service. Look, the reality is that government is a continuation. And this is something that UPND can never take credit of, independent of accepting that the only infrastructure that was made available for them to employ these people was what the Patriotic Front put together. We'd put up infrastructure in terms of schools, in terms of hospitals. So it was only appropriate that they could employ these people because they're going to find infrastructure where they're going to teach these people. I think the question related to how the UPND is instigating by-elections by sponsoring councillors to resign and get government positions. I can only repeat what I said earlier. It is inappropriate for the UPND to be the ones who are instigating these by-elections by sponsoring councillors, asking them to resign. They can continue with the program of employing people into civil service by identifying people who are not sitting as councillors, who require jobs. There are many of them that need these jobs. Give them those jobs in responding to what they have promised the people to do. The idea of sponsoring councillors to resign their position to be given jobs is a cost to the nation, which can be avoided. By-elections, Rajongo, are not cheap. They are very, very expensive. And you're asking me if when we came into power, we will not allow councillors to resign so that they can also be by-elections. I don't think the PF that will come into power in 2026 would want to repeat the mistakes that are being made now, unless we don't want to learn lessons. These are lessons we are learning. It's very undesirable, it's very unfortunate, but it's also a cost to the nation. Okay, you spoke about the sponsoring of renegades in a political party, and you said the only answer would be for us to find somebody who we can support as well. Because if we think that we are accusing the UPND of sponsoring renegades, then we should only identify somebody within a political party or within Patriotic Front who should now come and take over the political party. It is a fact that the renegades in Patriotic Front have been sponsored by the UPND. It is a known fact. Everybody knows it. Okay, we have responded to that. The response has been for us to allow the leader who had been legitimately elected in 2021 to come back and take over the reins of the party, and we are going on. We are rebranding, reorganizing the party. We will go to the convention at an appropriate time to go and elect the correct leader who's going to lead the Patriotic Front after we've resolved all these court cases. And I repeat, I'm hopeful that the courts can look at the environment in this nation where the dissatisfaction, the disgruntlement, and rise to the occasion and resolve the PF, intra-fighting disputes quickly enough so that people can go back and continue, to handle the affairs of the Patriotic Front. I've got optimism that the courts are going to be judicious in dealing with this matter. How do I want Parliament to be managed? This Parliament...
We need to be winding up.
Yes. This Parliament has been there even before the UPND. This Parliament was there even before the Patriotic Front, was in Parliament. But we've never seen a scenario where the party that is in power would like to destroy the integrity of every institution in the country, including Parliament itself. This avenue they have used of changing leadership on the opposition has destroyed the integrity of Parliament. Even the whips even the independent MPs, they had their own whip. This government instigated that whip from being removed by telling independent members of Parliament to withdraw allegiance to an independent member to the independent whip. All that is intended to destroy the integrity of Parliament as it's supposed to stand. In my assessment, we need to restore integrity in our Parliament. Allow the opposition political parties to organize their internal affairs without any interference, firstly from the party that is in government, and by extension from the presiding officers in Parliament itself.
And finally, in an event, President Hichilema initiates the process to lift the former president's immunity. How prepared is the former president for this?
He has declared himself that he's prepared for it. He will come and defend himself. It is only fair that, in my assessment, I have argued before that no circumstances exist in this country for anybody to actually think that President Lungu's immunity must be lifted. There's no basis. We need to move away. We've had problems in this country before. If you saw the sagas we had with President Chiruba and President Banda, we became a laughingstock in the region. I was even saying this is how we ended up with the amendment of 2016 to strengthen the immunity of the president. It is undesirable for President Hichilema to even think of kickstarting the process of lifting the immunity of Dr. Edgar Lungu. Allow him. He has served the nation. Let him enjoy his retirement. If he wants to come back to active politics, like somebody has said, let the Zambians be the ones to come and say whether they want him back or not. Okay, Mr. Mutabi, please allow me just to announce to the members, of the Patriotic Front that last year, because of the skirmishes that we were experiencing every time we tried to participate in the public processes of Women's Day and Youth Day, we had announced a central committee that we were not going to participate in last year's. I've just been informed to give an urgent notification from our Secretary General, Mr. Rafael Nakachinda, that this year, the Patriotic Front has allowed its members to participate in these public gatherings. We should participate in Women's Day. We should also participate in Youth Day. This is in keeping with the fact that we are an integral part of this Republic of Zambia. We are hopeful, of course, that in doing this, nobody's going to politicize this. Our members are being called upon to remain peaceful and to respect, the process and, remain calm while carrying out these functions. I hope that there will not be any basis for any mischievousness, either on the part of our members of Patriotic Front or on the part of the UPND members because they're in part. These are national events. I can make a clarion call to the leadership of UPND to also, charge their members to be peaceful when conducting these public affairs and to just treat others as brothers and sisters so that we can show that today it's not about political parties, it's about our nation.
Honorable George Chisanga, I would like to thank you so much for your time.
I'm so grateful, Mr. Mutabi, and again, welcome back to Zambia. We missed you. We know how interrogating you. Please continue on this trail. We're very grateful for giving us this opportunity to come and speak to Zambian people.
You're welcome. Grateful. And so, our guest on the Thursday edition of The Burning Issue has been a Lukashya member of Parliament, who is also legal chairman. and of the PF, member of the Central Committee and former president of the Gambia, Honorable George Chisanga. Thank you so much to our partner radio stations for carrying this program on their platforms. iWave from the Copperbelt Province, Muchinga FM, Wave FM, Spice FM, and Tuta FM. On behalf of my guests, we are back again next Tuesday with another edition of The Burning Issue. To all the callers and those that send messages, we appreciate you. The reason this program comes on radio. I'm Herbert Mutabi. Goodbye.
Tune in